We just finished dinner when Mark put down his fork and said, almost casually, "I think I need something more exciting." I blinked, not understanding. Then he added, "I've met someone." I stared at the man I'd spent 27 years with, raised, a daughter with, built a home with, and watched his eyes glaze over like I was already a memory. "She's younger," he said, like that somehow softened the blow. "But she gets me, makes me feel alive." Alive. That word echoed in my ears long after he left the table, but the knife didn't twist until 2 days later, when our daughter Hannah came downstairs with her suitcase in hand. "She's not so bad, Mom," she said softly, not meeting my eyes. "Maybe Dad just needs a second chance." Second chance. I watched her hug him on the porch, all teeth and tears and whispering promises. Then they drove off, my husband and the child I carried for 9 months. No one looked back. I stood in the doorway with a dish towel still in my hand, the casserole untouched on the stove, and silence spreading through the house like smoke. That night, I sat at the kitchen table alone. The clock ticked. The light stayed on. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just reached for a pen and wrote one name on a yellow sticky note, my lawyer's, because if they wanted a new life, they could have it. I'd even gift wrap it for them. But first, I had a little property matter to take care of. I met Mark when we were both 26. He had one cheap suit, a dream bigger than our apartment, and nothing but debt to his name. Me? I had a solid job offer from a publishing house in another state. I turned it down, because he said, "Let's build something together." So we did. He started a firm. I kept the books, cleaned the office, made coffee, typed up contracts when we couldn't afford a secretary. And when we finally had enough to hire staff, I stepped aside. Quietly. Because that's what you do when you believe in someone. I raised Hannah while he raised buildings. I cooked dinners. I organized birthdays. I stayed up late coloring charts for her science fairs. I let my career dreams go, one by one, because someone had to hold the house together. Someone had to be the net, but nobody remembers the net when the acrobat lands on their feet. By the time Hannah graduated, Mark's firm had 30 employees and a shiny downtown office with frosted glass doors. He hired her part-time to keep her close. She liked the lunches, the view, the way his staff treated her like royalty. And I stayed home, like always. The first time I heard the name Zoe was over dinner. Mark had just poured himself a glass of red. He took a sip, then casually said, "We hired a new operations manager, Zoe. Smart girl, efficient, sharp as a tack." I looked up. He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to Hannah. They exchanged a knowing glance I couldn't quite read. It didn't matter. Until a week later, when Mark came home late, he didn't lie, didn't stutter. He just said, like he was reading off a grocery list. "I'm in love with someone else." Silence. "It's Zoe." He set his keys on the counter like he hadn't just set fire to our entire life. "She understands me, Lena. She makes me feel alive." There it was again. That word. Alive. I stood there frozen, hands still wet from washing dishes. He didn't look angry, or sad, or ashamed. Just done. I wanted to ask, what about everything I gave up for you? What about the nights I waited, the holidays I spent alone, the dreams I shelved? But I didn't say a word. Because just then, Hannah walked into the room. She must have known. She didn't look surprised. She looked rehearsed. "Mom," she said, voice low and firm, "maybe it's time we all stop pretending." I blinked. At her. My daughter. My only child. She stepped toward Mark and gently touched his arm. Like she was the wife. Like I was the problem. "You've always been the dramatic one, Mom," she said. "Maybe Dad just wants to breathe." It took me a second to realize I was shaking. Not from rage, not yet. Just grief. I didn't argue. Didn't fight. Because I knew if I opened my mouth, the scream would never stop. Mark nodded like some unspoken agreement had been reached. And just like that, the decision was made. Not by me. Never by me. Within a week, they were gone. Off to a sleek new penthouse Mark just bought for the fresh start. They packed light. I watched from the kitchen window as Hannah loaded boxes into his car, laughing at something he said. Zoe showed up halfway through, wearing white linen and a smug little smile. She kissed his cheek in front of my house, the same porch where Mark had once knelt with a trembling ring in his hand, the same driveway where we brought Hannah home from the hospital. Now they were walking away from it like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing, and maybe, to them, I really didn't. So I stood there, still, silent, watching their fresh start pull out of the driveway. They thought I'd crumble. They thought I'd beg. But I didn't. I just turned off the kitchen light and started planning. The first few days after they left, I kept the house exactly as it was. Mark's toothbrush is still in the cup. Hannah's mug is still in the sink. I folded their laundry out of habit, left dinner on the stove like someone might come home late. But no one did. The silence in that house was brutal. It crawled into every corner. At night, I lay in our bed, my bed now, listening to the wind rattle the windows, wondering how someone could just stop loving you, like turning off a switch. Stopped answering calls, stopped returning texts, stopped going to book club, yoga, even church. Everyone assumed I needed space. And truthfully, I did. But not to heal, to disappear. Meanwhile, the world outside kept spinning. Zoe's Instagram became a scrapbook of their new life. Brunches with Mark, latte art with Hannah, rooftop selfies, with captions like, building a future from scratch. Fresh starts, family goals, blessed. Family goals. What family? They were using my family like a set of props. Mark, wearing the same smile he used to save for me. Hannah, posing with Zoe like they were sisters. I told myself not to look. I stayed off social media for weeks, but one night, around midnight, the loneliness got louder than my willpower. I opened the app, and there it was, a photo of the three. Of them, Zoe in the middle, Mark on one side, Hannah on the other, standing in front of a tall glass building. The caption read, "We're home." Something in me cracked. Not all at once. Not like glass shattering, more like old paint flaking off the walls. I stared at the screen, and for the first time I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a hollow ache. I shut my phone and wandered through the house. The fridge buzzed, the pipes creaked, and then something pulled me toward the office. It used to be Mark's space. After he left, I avoided it like a haunted room. But that night, I opened the drawer of his old desk. Inside were files, some dusty, some still crisp. Deeds, contracts, insurance, the past in paper form. I flipped through, not sure what I was looking for until I saw a familiar address. That address, the glass condo in the photo. I held the document up to the light, and there it was, clear as day. Owner, Lena Carter. Co-signatory, Mark Carter. Purchased 2017 for investment purposes. Rental property only. My hands started to shake. The condo, the place they called home, it was mine. He never transferred it, never updated the title. Because back then, it wasn't meant for living. It was supposed to be an income property. We put it in my name for tax purposes and then forgot. He forgot. But I didn't. Not anymore. I sat there in the dark, the paper trembling in my fingers, and I didn't cry. Because this time, something new was blooming inside me. Not pain, not grief. Power. He thought I was broken. He thought I was watching their story unfold from the sidelines. But what he didn't realize was that the stage they were performing on still belonged to me. The lawyer's office smelled like fresh leather and quiet judgment. He flipped through the paperwork page after page, then looked up at me over thin gold frames. "You're still the legal owner," he said simply. He never filed a title, transfer, probably didn't even remember he needed to. I didn't flinch. I just nodded. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't move. Inside, though, something shifted. But I didn't make a scene, didn't slam any doors, didn't call. Mark or march to that glass tower he called home. No. I waited. When the divorce papers came, I signed them without hesitation. No arguments, no tears. I let him think he'd won. I even let go of certain assets, ones he clearly expected me to fight for. The boat, the country club membership, some stock in his company. He left the room smug, thinking I'd finally seen reason. That the sad little housewife had accepted her fate. But behind the scenes? I was just getting started. I contacted a friend, someone who owed me a favor. We set up a holding company under her name. Quiet, legal, invisible. Then I sold the condo to that company for a symbolic fee. $1. All properly recorded. Clean and airtight. The condo was now owned by Everlight Properties, LLC. But Everlight answered to me. I drafted new lease terms, raised the rent, filed back pay notices for unapproved use. Zoe would receive it soon, tucked neatly into a formal envelope, the kind that makes your stomach drop when it hits the mailbox, but not yet. Timing mattered. Mark needed to feel secure, settled. He needed to decorate that condo, make memories in it, plant roots. He needed to believe it was his. That way, when I pulled the ground out from under him, he'd feel the fall. Around that time, I got a text from Hannah. Not, "Hi, Mom," not, "How are you?" Just, "Do you still have the tax filings from 2021? Dad needs them for the firm." No emotion, no warmth. Just a courier between two strangers. I replied, "They're in the folder labeled blue, bottom drawer." She didn't say thank you, and I didn't expect her to, because by then I wasn't hoping for reconciliation. I wasn't hoping for anything. Was planning. And every moment of silence, every insult swallowed, every smile I faked, was another brick in the foundation of their downfall. They thought I'd been erased, but I was still here, and they were living in a dream. On property I still owned. The message came on a Tuesday, short, abrupt. "Mom, when you're ready, come to Dad's company Thursday morning. Just trust me." No emojis, no warmth, no apology, just that. I stared at it for a long time. Was this a trap? A peace offering? A mistake? But curiosity has its own gravity, and Thursday morning I found myself standing in front of the mirrored tower that used to bear both our names. Mark and Lena Carter Development Group. Now it was just Carter Development. They'd even taken my name off the front sign. I stepped into the lobby, expecting to be stopped by security. Instead, the receptionist stood, nodded politely, and gestured to the elevator. "You're expected on the top floor, Mrs. Carter." Mrs. Carter. I didn't correct her. The conference room was full. Employees lined the walls. Investors in tailored suits flipped through thick binders. Board members sat stone-faced at the long table. At the head sat Mark, confident, relaxed, tapping his pen against the wood. Beside him was Zoe, legs crossed, lips curled in a soft smirk. She wore cream silk and a diamond necklace that looked vaguely familiar. No one noticed me at first. I slipped into a seat in the back, silent, observing. Then the double doors opened, and Hannah walked in, her hair pulled into a sharp bun, black slacks, navy blazer, a thick folder in her arms. She walked straight to the front, heels clicking like gunfire. No greeting. No pleasantries. She faced the room and cleared her throat. "Before we begin today's report, I'd like to introduce a new shareholder." Mark's brow twitched. Zoe glanced at him. "This person holds legal ownership of the penthouse currently, listed under company collateral. She also co-signed 30% of this firm's founding capital during its inception." Gasps scattered across the room like popcorn. Chairs shifted, papers rustled. Mark stood up slowly. "What is this, Hannah?" he asked, voice low. She ignored him. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Lena Carter." Every head turned. Eyes locked on me as I stood up from the back row. Calm, composed, radiant. I walked down the aisle with steady steps, stopping beside Hannah. Mark's mouth opened, but no words came out. Zoe's face drained of color. I looked at them. Father and daughter, former lovers, and now awkward co-conspirators. And then I turned to Hannah. She handed me the folder without a word. Inside, lease transfer notices, equity statements, and the deed to the condo, all stamped and notarized. She had done it. She had gathered it all, not for him, for me. And in that moment, I realized, she never left me. She had just gone undercover. Why? I whispered. Hannah looked at Mark, then at me, her voice barely audible. Because I had to see what kind of man he really was. And now I know. Mark stepped forward, voice trembling. Hannah, what are you doing? This is your future, too. She shook her head. No, Dad. My future doesn't involve pretending Mom never existed. The room was frozen. I opened the folder, pulled out the lease agreement, and set it on the table. Zoe, I said gently, you'll be receiving a new rent notice soon, along with back pay. Zoe opened her mouth, then closed it. Mark clenched his jaw but said nothing. And me? I just smiled, because the stage they built their little fantasy on, it was mine all along. They just didn't read the fine print. I took the mic with steady hands. Mark stared at me like he'd seen a ghost crawl out of his past. Zoe's smile had vanished, replaced by something sharp and sour. The boardroom was so silent I could hear the hum of the air conditioner, as yites. Legal co-owner of the penthouse condo currently held under this company's name, I began. And as a primary investor in this firm, thanks to my 30% capital contribution back when you had nothing but ideas and a borrowed desk, I paused. Let the weight of those words settle. Every eye locked on me. I'm just here to inform you of one thing. Zoe, you'll be receiving a lease renewal notice. Rent is going up. I looked her dead in the eye. And back pay is due. Effective. Immediately. Zoe's face turned the color of spoiled milk. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. The board erupted in murmurs, investors shifting in their seats. Someone muttered, "This is going to affect valuation." Another whispered, "Wait, she still owns the building?" Mark didn't speak. He couldn't. He just stared, jaw clenched, knuckles white where they gripped the edge of the table. The same table I'd helped him build this company from. But I didn't flinch, didn't gloat, didn't raise my voice. I just smiled. Then I placed the microphone back in its cradle. Clean, precise, like a closing act, and walked out, past the shocked faces. Past the silence. Past Zoe, whose heels now seemed too high for the fall she was about to take. Hannah fell in step beside me. Her expression is unreadable, but her presence is solid. We didn't speak as we rode the elevator down. But the quiet between us wasn't cold, it was earned, rebuilt. As we reached the lobby, she turned to me and whispered, "I hope you raise the rent high." I looked straight ahead. "Oh, sweetheart," I said softly. "They've been living far too cheap. For far too long." 6 months later, the keys to my new place jingled in my palm as I unlocked the front door of Wild Petals and Pages. A flower and book cafe, soft jazz, lavender tea, secondhand novels, and fresh blooms by the window. I used part of the divorce, payout, and the firm buyout to fund it. Every inch of it was mine, from the mismatched chairs to the worn poetry books. Mine and Hannah. She's there every morning, helping me open shops, arranging tulips with practiced hands. We don't talk about betrayal anymore. We don't need to. Some bonds, once reforged, don't break again. Mark? Zoe left a few weeks after the board meeting. Rumor has it she moved to Miami. Younger CEO, bigger yacht. Mark now rents a one-bedroom far from downtown. No concierge, no rooftop views, just rusting pipes and late-night takeout. He called once. I let it ring. Sometimes when I'm driving deliveries to the florist supply, I pass the glass tower. The penthouse still gleams like it did that first day. But now when I look up, I smile. Because the woman who once strutted into my life and stole my family still pays rent, every month, to me. The woman they thought was soft, silent, spent. Turns out, I wasn't any of those things. I was just getting started.